On November 5, 2025, Norway's Defence Minister Tor O Sandvik delivered a stark message to Parliament. The country will channel $7 billion into Ukraine's defence sector for 2026, a targeted infusion designed to ramp up local production of drones, missiles and air defence systems. This isn't vague goodwill, it's a direct counter to Russia's grinding advances, funding factories in Kyiv and Odessa to churn out weapons that have already proven lethal in the Black Sea. As Sandvik put it, we're not just sending aid, we're building Ukraine's arsenal for sustained resistance. For anyone following the Ukraine conflict's pulse, this pledge from a NATO ally with 5.5 million people lands like a precision strike, forcing Moscow to recalculate its northern flank. Over the next minutes, we'll dissect the breakdown of this $7 billion package, its battlefield ripple effects, and the strategic pressure it piles on Putin, backed by fresh data from Oslo's budget docs and frontline reports. Let's map the impact. Norway's commitment clocks in at 75 billion Norwegian kroner, equivalent to about $7 billion at current rates, marking a 25% hike from 2025's allocation and the highest per capita contribution among NATO members. The bulk, roughly 60% or $4.2 billion, targets Ukraine's domestic arms industry, prioritizing scalable tech over one-off shipments. Why this focus? Russia's invasion has exposed Kyiv's supply vulnerabilities. Foreign weapons arrive slow, while local mines can double output in months. Take the drone sector. Norway's funds will back expansions at firms like Athlon Avia, which already produces 500 FPV units weekly. These low-cost killers have sunk over 20 Russian vessels since mid-2024, per Ukrainian naval intel, turning the Black Sea into a no-go zone for Putin's fleet. Dig deeper into the allocation. $1.8 billion goes to air defense enhancements, upgrading systems like the NASAMS, Norway's own export hit that's intercepted 85% of incoming missiles in joint tests. This cash buys radar arrays and interceptors, co-manufactured in Lviv, reducing reliance on U.S. Patriots that take weeks to deploy. Another $1.2 billion fuels missile production, including Storm Shadow equivalents from local plants, aimed at hitting Crimean logistics hubs. The remaining $2 billion spreads across naval upgrades and cyber tools, with Norway sharing its Arctic surveillance expertise to harden Ukraine's ports against submarine threats. Real-world tie-in. In October 2025, Norwegian-trained Ukrainian operators used similar tech to jam Russian Orlan drones over Kherson, saving a key bridgehead. What makes this surge a force multiplier? Norway's approach flips the aid paradigm from donor dependency to partnership equity. Unlike bulk ammo dumps that deplete stockpiles, this investment yields returns. Every dollar spent in Ukrainian factories generates 3 in economic output, according to a 2025 World Bank assessment of war-torn manufacturing. Oslo's model, buying bonds tied to production milestones, ensures accountability. If quotas aren't met, funds roll over. This has already boosted Ukraine's defense GDP share to 35% this year, rivaling wartime economies like Israel's. For Russia's side, the math stings. Their 2025 military spend hit $120 billion, but corruption and sanctions have slashed efficiency by 40%, leaving gaps Norway's aid exploits.
Funds roll out Q1 2026, aligning with Ukraine's spring offensive planning. Early wins could include 5,000 new drones by March, per preliminary contracts leaked from Norway's foreign ministry. Battlefield projection. Enhanced air cover might cut Russian glide bomb success rates by 30%, freeing troops for counter-pushes in Zaporizhzhia. Russia's knee-jerk. Lavrov called it provocative escalation on November 6th, but with their Arctic bases strained by NATO exercises, it's bluster masking strain. Value angle for analysts. Norway's per GDP contribution, 1.2%, sets a benchmark. If emulated by Denmark or the Netherlands, Ukraine's arsenal could swell 50% by mid-year. How does this pressure Putin's calculus? Moscow's doctrine banks on attrition, wearing down Western resolve through prolonged stalemates. Norway's pledge undercuts that by fostering self-sufficiency, echoing the US lend-lease of WW2, but with modern strings attached. Putin's response options narrow. Escalate hybrid ops in the Barents Sea? Risky given Norway's F-35 fleet patrolling 24/7. Divert resources north. That thins Donbass lines where Ukrainian gains have reclaimed 150 square kilometers since September. From leaked FSB memos cited in Norwegian media, the Kremlin views this as a Scandinavian dagger, prompting internal debates on reallocating $15 billion from domestic projects. If Norway's model catches fire, could it force a Russian retreat from Kherson by summer? Weigh the odds in your mind. What factor tips it for you, drone volume or missile range? The data suggests volume wins short-term, but range seals long-game victories, as seen in the 2024 Kursk incursion, where extended-range ATACMS shifted momentum. Shift to the human element. Behind the billions are stories from the ground. In Dnipro's arms plants, workers like 28-year-old Olena, a former teacher turned welder, credit Norwegian grants for doubling shifts without burnout. This isn't charity, it's partnership. We build, they trust, she told Reuters in October. Norway's aid includes training modules, dispatching 200 engineers to Ukraine last quarter for hands-on transfers. This builds not just machines but mastery. Ukraine's hit rate on Russian armor jumped 25% post-training, per OSINT trackers. Economically, it's a win-win. Norway offloads excess oil revenues, peaking at NOK 1.2 trillion in 2024, into bonds yielding 4.5%, while Ukraine gains forex stability. Russia's envy? Their sovereign fund dipped 15% this year from war costs, forcing cuts to social spending. Strategic layer? This aid dovetails with NATO's steadfast defender drills, where Norwegian forces simulated Arctic invasions, a subtle nod to potential spillover if Putin eyes the north. Probe the risks. Critics in Oslo warn of overstretch, with domestic polls showing 62% support but fatigue rising. Yet Sturta counters. Neutrality died with the invasion. Security is collective. For Ukraine, the peril is dependency creep, but diversified donors, US, UK, Germany, mitigate that. Russia's wildcard, cyber retaliation, as seen in the 2024 Norwegian grid hack traced to GRU. Mitigation, Norway's $500 million cyber slice in the package fortifies grids. Forecast the fallout. By Q3 2026, expect Ukraine's drone exports to hit $2 billion annually per IMF projections, turning aid into revenue. Russia's countermeasures? Likely more Iskandar barrages on factories, but NASAMS upgrades could blunt 70% of them. Broader theatre? This emboldens Baltic states, with Latvia using similar packages. Engagement query? Does Norway's surge signal NATO's endgame or just prolong the grind? Your perspective matters. What metric decides victory, territory or tech? The evidence tilts tech. Norway's bet could prove pivotal. Wrap the mechanics. The $7 billion flows via a trilateral fund with the EU, audited quarterly for transparency. Key partners, Saab for radar codev and Ukrainian firms like Ukrbonprom for assembly. Early indicators? A November 7 pilot project delivered 200 Storm Shadows, slashing Russian convoy runs by 40% in tests. Norway's Arctic edge shines here. Cold-hardened batteries for drones that operate in -30°C, useless in Russia's warmer south. Global echo. This pledge ripples to the G20, where Norway lobbies for a defense dividend tax on oil majors, potentially unlocking $50 billion more. Putin's camp fumes, but their BRICS summit yielded 0 arms deals, highlighting isolation. Value takeaway? In hybrid wars, industrial aid outpaces arms alone. Ukraine's output surged 200% since 2023 via similar boosts. One final lens, the moral weight. Norway, scarred by 2011's Breivik attacks, sees Ukraine's fight as a firewall against autocracy. Sturda's words, "We stand where freedom demands." For soldiers in Avdiivka, this means resupplied howitzers firing longer. Russia's human toll, 650,000 casualties by November per UK estimates, underscoring the asymmetry. In sum, Norway's $7 billion defense surge for 2026 isn't a footnote. It's the lever prying open Russia's grip. Factory floors humming, skies cleared, seas secured. This package, greenlit November 5, positions Ukraine not as beggar but builder. The clock ticks towards 2026. The question lingers. Will it force talks or harden lines? Your analysis, tech edge or territorial push as the decider. The evidence tilts tech. Norway's bet could prove pivotal.